Many people worry that artificial intelligence will take human jobs, and that fear doesn't come from imagination. It comes from news about layoffs, from growing automation, and from chatbots that are now able to do more and more tasks once handled by people. But if you look closely at how businesses are actually operating, you will notice that most companies are not using AI to replace humans entirely. They are using AI to change how work gets done. The real issue with AI is not its arrival, but the fact that many people continue working the same way while the system around them has already changed. The real danger isn't that AI suddenly appears one day and replaces humans. The real danger is that many people still have jobs, still go to work every day, but their value inside the company has already started to decline without them realizing it. There is no layoff notice, no dramatic event, just small parts of familiar work gradually becoming automated, and tasks that once created the feeling of "I am busy, I'm contributing, I matter" slowly disappear. The anxiety doesn't come from fear of unemployment, but from no longer being sure what exactly you are being paid for. Instead of needing 5 people for a certain amount of work, many organizations now need only one, as long as that person knows how to work alongside AI, how to use it to accelerate processes, expand output, and control workflows, producing results that previously required several people. When productivity structures change, what gets affected first is not the existence of a profession, but the number of positions, the entry standards, and the capability gap between people doing the same job. The market is not dividing between humans and machines. It is quietly dividing between those who use AI to expand their abilities and those who continue working the old way in a system that is no longer the same. So the real question is no longer whether AI will take human jobs, but in this new structure of work, who will remain essential and who will slowly be pushed aside without even noticing. When people say AI is taking jobs, they are often describing a feeling rather than what is actually happening. Job loss rarely arrives as a sudden event or mass replacement by machines. In reality, it happens quietly. A job doesn't disappear overnight, but it gradually loses its easiest parts, the parts that once took the most time and created the feeling of being productive and valuable. When those parts are gone, the position and job title may still exist, but income drops, working hours change, promotion opportunities shrink, and most importantly, the role inside the system is no longer what it used to be. That's what creates anxiety, even when someone technically hasn't lost their job. In business, the question is rarely can AI replace humans. It's always about reducing costs, increasing output, and shortening time. AI simply arrived at the right moment to answer all three. So the common model isn't AI replaces people, but rather one person with AI can now produce the output that previously required many. And this leads to an important shift that is rarely stated openly. Companies don't stop hiring because there is less work, they stop hiring because each worker now produces more. Demand for labor doesn't vanish, but entry standards rise, internal competition intensifies quietly, and in this environment, AI becomes a leverage tool in competition between people, not against them. Jobs affected earliest are not necessarily those that are dying, but those where tasks are easy to automate, repetitive work with clear rules and predictable inputs and outputs. Tasks involving summarizing information, writing reports, data processing, or producing template-based content are often the first parts to be absorbed by AI. AI is eating tasks, not entire roles, at least not yet. A profession doesn't vanish immediately, but the easiest parts disappear first. And when those parts are gone, workers must move toward harder, more complex responsibilities or risk being pushed aside. That's why many people feel they work harder yet feel less secure, not because they've become worse, but because the productivity baseline around them has shifted. In this context, someone who knows how to use AI isn't just someone who knows tools or writes complex prompts. It's someone who knows how to ask the right questions so AI produces useful answers, who knows how to verify outputs instead of accepting them blindly, who can decide when to trust, when to discard, and when to take responsibility, and who can combine information into meaningful action. In other words, AI amplifies existing thinking. It doesn't replace judgment. It exposes the lack of judgment. The real gap isn't between humans and AI, but between people who work with AI and those who stay outside that process. This gap doesn't open overnight, but once it widens, it becomes difficult to close. Many misunderstand the situation, some panic thinking AI will replace everyone, while others falsely believe learning a few tricks guarantees safety. No field, creative or technical, is immune to restructuring. The labor market is moving in three directions at once. Some positions disappear entirely, some roles keep their titles but change in nature, and entirely new jobs appear requiring completely different skills. The shock doesn't hit all at once but varies by industry, timing, and individual preparation. In this reality, safety is no longer defined by job title or years of experience, but by how repetitive your work is, how much human judgment it requires, and how adaptable you are. From this perspective, the real question is not whether AI will take your job, but whether you are competing against AI or competing against people who know how to use it. Looking deeper, the true change isn't in the number of jobs, but in how human value is defined. When productivity can be amplified by tools, simply working hard is no longer enough. What matters is the impact of decisions, not the time spent working. In such a world, safety doesn't come from avoiding AI or chasing every new tool. It comes from understanding where you stand in the value chain and which parts of your work cannot easily be separated from human involvement. The irony is that the harder people try to cling to old stability, the faster the system is forced to change, and pressure ends up falling hardest on those least prepared. So the real question is not how powerful AI becomes or how harsh the market is, but whether you are being paid for performing tasks or for making judgments, for following processes or for solving problems that have no ready-made answers. At a system level, AI is not humanity's enemy, but at a personal level it reveals an uncomfortable truth. The gap between those who adapt and those who don't will only become clearer. Perhaps what we should worry about is not losing a specific job, but failing to realize that our role has already changed while we continue acting as if nothing has. So instead of asking whether AI will take your job, perhaps the better question is, which part of your work is being slowly absorbed by AI, the tasks or the role? And if change arrives not as a sudden shock but through quiet, gradual shifts, will you notice in time before the system moves too far beyond your familiar position? If you see things differently or are experiencing these changes in your own work, feel free to share your thoughts. Thank you for listening, and see you in the next analysis.